me turn your attention to John chapter 11. John chapter 11, beginning with verse 1. And a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. And lots of prayers went up for Larry. Lord, he whom you love is sick. When Jesus heard that, verse 4, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. And you know this story. You know very well what happened to Lazarus. He died. Lazarus died. But Jesus is saying, well, this isn't to death. He's going to glorify God. Somehow in this death, he was going to glorify God. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, when Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick, try and picture this with me. He stayed 2 more days. Wait. If he's sick, shouldn't you go now? Right? Doesn't that make sense? If he's sick and you wanted to do something about that, you'd go now, right? Clearly Jesus knew something that I don't know. Unless I read the rest of this verse, the rest of this section. And so he stayed 2 more days, and then, verse 7, after this, he said to the disciples, let us go to Judea again. So he was ready to go back there again. Verse 11, these things he said, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. Oh, the disciples said, verse 12, oh, good. Then his disciples said, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get well, you know. He can sleep and get over this sickness, right? Verse 13. However, Jesus spoke of his death. In other words, Lazarus was already gone. And so, the disciples, it says, they thought that he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus said, verse 14, to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And then he says something more that's a little bit strange. He says, but I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. Wait, I thought he said he loved him. Didn't he say he loved him? And yet he said, I'm glad for your sake that I wasn't there. I wonder sometimes, as we look at these kinds of situations, as we look at a situation with Larry, and all of us, every person in this room, I'm sure, sent up prayers for Larry. And yet here we sit at this meeting going, what's the plan here, God? Why did this happen? You know? Somehow, God is going to be glorified in this. And I'm sure Martha and Mary were, how can this possibly be glorifying God? Jesus said, oh man, just wait and see. Just wait and see. Have I got some awesome stuff planned here? And so, Jesus had already kind of given them the little hint. He said, our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up. And so they went there again to the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And verse 20, then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary was sitting in the house. Now Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Did she have faith? Did she have lots of faith? Absolutely. She believed that Jesus could have healed him. But he had some better plans. Verse 22, she goes on. But even now I know that whatever you ask God, God will give you. Wow. That's some serious faith, huh? And so Jesus says to her in verse 23, your brother will rise again. And she said, I know that he will rise again when? In the resurrection at the last day. But Jesus had something else in mind. Verse 26 or verse 25, he answers, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. Brothers and sisters, we miss Larry. Absolutely. We miss him. But Jesus has a plan. Jesus has a promise. Jesus has something good for you and I. Larry will rise again. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? And Martha's like, absolutely. 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 And you know the story. Jesus went there to the tomb. In verse 38, then Jesus again, groaning in himself, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus cared about what the family was going through. Jesus loved them. He cared about them. And Jesus loves and cares about you too. He knows what your struggles are. He knows the difficulties that you're going through. He knows the feelings of watching people he loves die. He knows that. But he has good plans, big plans for Larry. And so I want to go back now to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Beginning with verse 12. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Now if Christ is preached that he has been raised from the dead, how do some among you say that there is no resurrection of the dead? And if there is no resurrection of the dead, then Christ is not risen. Woo, that's pretty serious. Paul was serious. And if Christ is not risen, then our preaching is empty, and our faith is also empty. In other words, our faith, brothers and sisters, our knowledge of what will happen to Larry in the last day is based on a hope of the resurrection. And Jesus is the first fruits of that hope. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Paul says. And so then I go to nearly the end of the chapter. And he says, behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We will not all sleep the sleep of death. But he says, we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump. For the trumpet will sound. Not maybe, not could be, not might. The trumpet will sound. Ooh, yeah. Are your ears tuned up for that one? For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible. Larry will have a new liver.
Amen.
Ooh. Yeah, I'll get a new knee. How about you? I'm sure there's something you could say, you'll get a new something or another. Want to be awesome? Want to be awesome. The dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption. And this mortal, oh yeah, immortality. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So whether we sleep and wait in the dust of the earth until Jesus comes, or whether we're alive and remain, we'll be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And we'll get together again, and then it won't be for sorrow. It won't be for remembering what was. It'll be a praise to God for all that's going to happen. It'll be beautiful. It'll be beautiful. And I'm looking forward to that. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality.